access to those in need and more money from international donors.
That was, of course, Andrew, Africa correspondent. Well, the former head of a French university has been placed under formal investigation over a scandal over the treatment of human bodies donated for research. Frédéric Dardel is accused of mistreating corpses when he was president of the Paris Descartes University between 2012 and 2019. Janat Jalil reports from Paris.
This is a scandal that broke 2 years ago after an investigation by a French news magazine, L'Express, found shocking conditions at the university's Centre for Body Donations. It reported that bodies donated to help science were piled up in a jumble on gurneys and left to rot in rodent-infested rooms. It also alleged that some bodies were sold to private companies, for example, for use in car crash tests. The government ordered the decades-old centre to close and carried out an investigation that concluded that there had been serious ethical breaches. Now the former head of Paris Descartes University, Frédéric Dardel, is under formal investigation over the scandal, accused of desecrating a corpse. His lawyer, Marie-Alix Canu-Bernard, says he made repeated requests to the government for funding to renovate the dilapidated body donation centre, but his pleas went unheeded.
The
French state was negligent because there was a board of directors meeting every month and the minister was definitely informed of the problem. So I wonder why the state did nothing at the time. But as soon as the press talked about it, the state and the minister rushed to close down the Centre for Body Donations, which was a catastrophe for French medicine.
Before the centre in Paris's left bank was closed, it had been the leading institution of its kind in France, providing training for doctors and surgeons. The university has apologised to the relatives of the dead, around 170 of whom are plaintiffs in this lawsuit. One big question is whether this scandal may have made people in France more reluctant to donate their bodies or those of their loved ones for research.
Janat Jalil in Paris. Astronauts are some of the fittest people around, but why do so many of them get sick after being in space? Well, scientists have been searching for answers since the Apollo crews of the 1960s suffered heart problems, low blood pressure, and an array of viruses on the return to Earth. Now researchers have found that space travel has a previously unknown effect on our immune systems. Jordan Spatz from the University of California in San Francisco led the project.
So it is a double whammy. One, microgravity is causing an increase in reactivation of latent viruses, and then the immune system is having a harder time controlling those activated viruses.
So knowing what's going on inside the body in microgravity, does it mean that we can perhaps sort of train the bodies of would-be astronauts to deal with that or medicate it ahead of time? Is that possible?
Yeah, so the big picture is really first focusing on nutrition, exercise for either commercial astronauts or for long-duration astronauts to the moon or Mars. And then once we understand what's going on, being able to tailor the immune system specifically to adapt it to better respond in microgravity. And then there would be Earth applications to that as well.
You were talking about commercial space travelers, older people who go up into space. It sounds like that it's really important to get a handle on this now.
So commercial flyers, astronauts are older. The individuals that have the financial resources to pay for a Blue Origin flight or a Virgin Galactic flight. And then we know that the immune system is weakened as we age. And so those individuals, if they go on long durations to commercial space stations and stay up for more than a couple hours or days, then yeah, they will have these effects on their immune system. Bigger picture, going to Moon and Mars, the longer you spend in space, the more at risk you are.
You talked about applications on Earth. You're saying that understanding these other kind of reactions from microgravity might have applications for the here and now on Earth.
Some of the COVID variants play tricks on our immune system to not relay signals in the body to tell the body that the virus is there. That is why some of the variants are being more transmissible and more infectious. And so understanding how the whole immune regulation works is just really important from a science perspective.
That was Jordan Spatz, and here's Sue with some of the other stories we've been looking at today.
Australia is under pressure to release a family from detention on Christmas Island after one of the children was medically evacuated to Perth. Friends say 3-year-old Tarnika Murugapan has sepsis and pneumonia. Her parents, Tamil refugees from Sri Lanka, arrived by boat in Australia nearly a decade ago seeking asylum. Two actors from the hit Canadian sitcom Kim's Convenience have spoken out about what they say is the show's poor approach to depicting Korean Canadians. Simu Liu and Jang Yoon voiced their frustrations in social media, complaining about an overwhelmingly white production team and overtly racist storylines. The show hasn't responded to the allegations. And a gold coin produced in the US in 1933 has been sold at auction for almost $20 million, the highest price ever paid for a coin. The double eagle was the last gold coin produced for intended circulation in the US, but was never issued.
Thank you very much for that, Sue. Kate Winslet is an internationally renowned Hollywood actor. She believes now that Hollywood is improving for women with better roles and progress on equal pay as well. Our entertainment correspondent, Colin Patterson, has been finding out how these changes have affected her most current role.
The Easttown Police Department received a call reporting a dead body in
Kate
Freedom
Winslet
Street.
was talking about the success of her new crime drama, Mayor of Easttown, in which she plays an American detective who's seen eating burgers, vaping and having sex with what the 45-year-old described as a bulging bit of belly hanging out.
You know, I do feel proud that as a woman in the film industry, in her mid-40s now, having been doing this job since I was 17 years old, that I'm being given that space to fully embrace all of these changes that life years have left my face and body with. And, you know, I feel good about myself. And that seems to be being celebrated because of Mare and how she has resonated with audiences. So it's a good, empowering moment.
She believes the role highlights how Hollywood is now moving in the right direction, when until recently the assumption had been that an actress's career would decline as they left their 30s behind.
I think things are changing in terms of equal pay. We're seeing a huge increase in terrific roles for women to play, especially women of my age group, actually, which is new.
She also spoke about the importance of the increased use of intimacy coordinators in the industry, people who supervise the filming of sex scenes. Kate Winslet also expressed her belief that actresses in general were now more willing to support each other in a way they were not when she started her career.
That was Colin Patterson. Now, has a herd of elephants in China forgotten where it lives? For the last 15 months, the 12 adults and 3 calves have walked 500 kilometres from their natural habitat in the southwest of the country. Our Asia-Pacific editor, Michael Bristow, told us more about the elephants and the outpouring of support for them.
Recently, there haven't been many wild elephants in China. There are about 300 or so right in the far southwest of the country in a forested, mountainous area on the border with Myanmar. That's it, essentially. It's a protected area. Since the 1980s, the wild herd has more or less doubled in size. So, yeah, there's about 300 now, but mostly located in this one particular area on the very edge of China.
And I suppose because there are so few of them left, they're causing a bit of a stir, aren't they, amongst people? And people are going to extraordinary lengths to keep them safe.
Last March, that's March in 2020, so about 15 months ago, they started this long trek northwards. Essentially, in that time, they've travelled about 500 kilometres and they've moved all the way through really populated areas, villages, towns. They've destroyed crops, more than $1 million worth of crops. They've broken into people's yards. They've broken into kitchens. Even at one stage, they broke into a compound of an old people's home, and an old person had to hide under the bed when he saw a trunk peeping through the window. So all kinds of escapades, and these have been increasingly followed by a really avid viewership in China. Drones have been sent up to monitor their movement, and essentially this is a story which everyone in China is really following.
And Michael, do we know why they're taking this long trip? Is it habitat loss or what?
We don't know. The experts don't know really why they've done it. There's 15 elephants in total, some adults, some calves, some younger elephants. It could be one experts have speculated that perhaps they set off on a war, got lost, being led by an inexperienced leader. It could be that over recent years that the food that they've started to eat on the edges of their reserve, sugarcane and maize, they're increasingly attracted by this, and so that's pushed them further, because these aren't the things which they usually eat. These are crops grown by farmers, so perhaps they've got a taste for other things which has pushed them out.
Michael Bristow, and he was telling me that the authorities are trying to lure all those elephants back to where they came from, but no joy yet. That is almost it for this edition. But before we go, our main headline again. The war crimes judges in The Hague have upheld a conviction for genocide and the life sentence against the former Bosnian Serb military leader, Ratko Mladic. That is it. Thanks for your time. Bye-bye.
Next, we bring you Sport Today. Then in half an hour, we hear about the experiences of black single mothers in America.
I think society does blame women a lot. Single moms, we get the brunt of it all. Because people will look and say, well, a child came from a healthy home with a mother and a father, so our homes are never seen healthy. They're never seen enough.
Then it's Digital Planet.
The Firefox browser continues to be edged out by the ever-dominant Chrome. So can Firefox's new redesign persuade you if you're in the 96% who browse elsewhere?
And at 21 GMT, we hear about a helpline in Colombia aimed at the perpetrators of domestic violence.
We did an analysis of motivations behind acts of violence against women. And something very surprising appeared. In 60% of the cases, jealousy was behind it.
That's all still to come from the BBC World Service.
Hello, I'm Adi Adedoyin, and this is Sport Today on the BBC World Service. We respect each other as players, but not too much on a personal level. The words of second seed Daniil Medvedev, who renews his rivalry against the fifth seed Stefanos Tsitsipas. At stake tonight is a place in the last four of the French Open Tennis Championships. And from a junior snowboarding champion to Grand Slam semi-finalist, we hear about the remarkable rise of Slovenia's Tamara Zidanšek. All on Sport Today.
BBC News. The former Bosnian Serb military leader Ratko Mladic is to spend the rest of his life behind bars after losing his appeal against a genocide conviction. The judges upheld the life sentence handed down 4 years ago for atrocities during the breakup of Yugoslavia, including the Srebrenica massacre in 1995. The UN Secretary-General's Special Advisor on Genocide said it sent an important message to the Western Balkans, where she said genocide denial was on the increase. Police in 16 countries have arrested hundreds of people after intercepting millions of messages by suspected members of organised crime groups. Those detained had been tricked into using a messaging app run by the FBI. South Africa's Health Minister, Zweli Mkhize, has been placed on special leave, pending a corruption probe. He faces allegations that two of his close aides embezzled more than $6 million from public coronavirus funds. Officials in Bangladesh have arrested 2 more people as they investigate a trafficking ring. The 11 now in custody are accused of recruiting young girls through the social media app TikTok, promising them modelling work, but instead forcing them into the sex trade in southern India. The Lebanese militant group Hezbollah has accused businesses of hoarding goods and worsening shortages as Lebanon's economic crisis deepens. Hezbollah's leader suggested food, fuel and medicines were being withheld. 21 people from Ghana's LGBT community have been denied bail and have been kept in jail following their arrest last month. South America's most successful golfer, Angel Cabrera, has been extradited from Brazil to his native Argentina to face charges of assault against his ex-wife. He's also been accused of theft, illegal intimidation and of attempting to run over another former partner. BBC News.
Over the wall, and it's into the net! And that's been driven beautifully. Serena Williams, Wimbledon champion, touchdown. Rebound James, how they get then, precise left hook.
Live from the BBC World Service, this is Sport Today.
And welcome to today's programme from me, Adi Adedoyin. Coming up, the reigning world champions France will be aiming to win another European Football Championship and make up for defeat in the 2016 final. We continue our build-up to this year's tournament, which gets underway on Friday, with a focus on the pre-tournament favourites. That's to come, but we start with tennis, and in the next 30 minutes, Daniil Medvedev and Stefanos Tsitsipas will reignite their often ill-tempered rivalry when they meet in the quarterfinals of the French Open. Tsitsipas has previously referred to Medvedev's game as boring and remarked the two wouldn't go for dinner together. Medvedev suggested this week that relations hadn't improved between the two players. Now, Tsitsipas, who's hoping to remain on course to reach a first Grand Slam final, is fully aware of the challenge he faces tonight.
He does serve extremely well, I have to say, and he has improved over the years with his serve. This is going to be, something that I will have to face. And, of course, myself playing well, I feel like I don't have to think against home facing or not. I just have to play my game.
Well, let's speak to the BBC's tennis correspondent, Russell Fuller, who's at Roland Garros. Now, Russell, based on their form, what kind of match are we in for tonight?
Well, it's very, very difficult to say, Adi, because you have Daniil Medvedev, who is the number 2 seed, the world number 2, and yet before Roland Garros was telling anybody who cared to listen how much he hated the clay. He had won just one match on clay this season before the French Open. He'd lost in the first round in his 4 previous visits here, yet having arrived, the clay seems to put a smile on his face. The sunshine is good, the ball is bouncing high, he likes the ball, and he's a player transformed. He's only dropped 1 set en route to the quarterfinals. He's playing Stefanos Tsitsipas, who's won 2 tournaments on the clay this year, is a natural clay court player. You would have thought he would have been a strong favourite before the championships began, and then you throw in their head-to-head record, which Medvedev dominates. Tsitsipas finds it quite difficult to play Medvedev, so I'm really not sure how the next few hours are going to unfold.
And the winner of this match will play Alexander Zverev, who beat Alejandro Davidovich Fokina in straight sets. How impressed were you by what you saw?
Well, Zverev did nicely after the first set, which had 7 breaks of serve. Zverev won it by 6 games to 4 against the world number 46, who was appearing at this stage of a Grand Slam for the first time. He had a few back problems, Davidovich Fokina said, woke up feeling not particularly clever this morning, and after that it was one-way traffic, Zverev taking sets 2 and 3, 6-1, 6-1. So after a few problems in the first round, when he found himself 2 sets down to another German, a qualifier by Oscar Otter, Zverev's looked very good for the most part, and he's into his 3rd Grand Slam semi-final.
And in the women's draw, Slovenia's Tamara Zidansek has reached her maiden Grand Slam semi-final with victory over Spain's Paula Badosa 7-5, 4-6, 8-6. Speaking at the news conference after the match, Zidansek says she was still struggling to come to terms with the magnitude of her achievement.
Well, it feels overwhelming. It's hard to take it in like this fast, And yeah, speaking about nerves today, that's exactly what I tried to do. Of course, it was a great opportunity for the both of us, to get into the semifinals. But I guess I managed to keep my composure today a little bit better than her. But still, it was a tough battle in the end.
So, Russell, Zidansek, world number 85, but surely that ranking will rise based on the way she's performed over this last fortnight at Roland Garros.
Yes, she'll be a top 50 player even if she loses the semi-final. But what an amazing couple of weeks it's been for her. Never passed the 2nd round of a Grand Slam before. And now she has a chance of going all the way to the final. She looked like she might win in straight sets for a while. She was a set and 4-2 up, but got a little bit nervous at that point.